Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of the BNH Virtual Event Space, part of our In Conversation Swift series. The man himself, Chrystofer Dolo, Photo Davis, joining today. Old friend of mine. I told him before we went live today, I'm like, I got to have you on like once a year minimum. Keep you as a regular face on here. But Dolo, what's going on, man? How you been?
What's going on, Derek? Everything's been good, man. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. And I don't think you and I spoke in this capacity. It was like we did a panel and then we had you talking photo 101 and some film stuff. But I'm like, you know what? I haven't caught up with them in a while. Why not do it live on air? So this is kind of for me, kind of for the people. But I feel like everybody needs an update on where you're at because you've been all over the place lately.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's like a three-peat for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
definitely.
man, so much has happened, since the last time we spoke. Like just me just going out, just document everyday life, and now I'm a college professor now, I don't know, it's like a full circle moment for me, because from that first talk that we had about how film photography made me a better digital photographer, and now I'm in the college setting now, and I'm teaching people digital photography, and giving them these compare and contrast between film. So it's been nothing but just a great experience, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Nah, definitely. I mean, you brought it there, so let's stay there. I mean, you're all over the industry right now. You were doing some work with lomography.
Mhm.
Obviously, everything you're doing in Newark, an hour is probably not enough to touch on everything you're doing, but we'll get it in bits and pieces. And
Sure.
like you just said, over there at your alma mater, Bloomfield College, doing work. So it's like let's start right there at Bloomfield. Obviously, back when you were undergrad, you probably never thought you'd be coming back to teach there. So what is it like coming back and teaching them who you once were?
Man, I just think about just like when I first arrived there, coming from high school. My social studies teacher, he was the first person to put like a professional camera in my hand, like a professional full frame camera. And from that moment of like mentorship there, I wanted to go back to Bloomfield, and well, I wanted to attend Bloomfield to get a degree in photography. But by the time that I was getting there, they kind of ended that program. So I was like, you know what? The next best thing I can do is just is video, And then I studied video, being in college and networking with different types of people, and had the opportunity to get a taste of the industry a little bit earlier, being up in office like shooting like Fubu, Kuji, and I'm thinking like, wow, like this is just like truly amazing, and I didn't expect myself to get to that point, at an early stage, but um yeah, just I guess just fast forward up to now, um, just teaching at Bloomfield. The opportunity really started with like one of my former professors. And there's a photographer, her name is Heidi. I'm forgetting her last name, but we pretty much was on a panel together at a BKC in Bushwick. And she posted me on her Instagram, and then my former professor is friends with her as well. And so she reached out and said, hey, like, I didn't know, you're still around, that you do Heidi, and like, let's definitely keep in contact. And so 2020 happened, and uh, everything's pretty much on lockdown. Like we've all, been through that experience. But she randomly, just reached out to me and said, hey, I would love for you to fill in and be a guest speaker, guest lecturer, from my class, because you're doing such amazing work covering, the 2020 People's Uprising. You're documenting the pandemic. So I definitely want you to showcase some of your works, and speak a little bit more about yourself. And so that opportunity happened, and then 2021, we collaborated on like a photo walk slash kind of like history lesson with her class. And from there, we just kept collaborating and just putting together different projects. And then the opportunity came, and she said, hey, I definitely love for you to come back to Bloomfield and teach digital photography. And being a professor, and I didn't realize that it's highly competitive, and majority of the time you actually need an MFA, to actually be considered a professor. You got to go through so much different, trainings and experiences. But Me dedicating my time to teach at the Newark print shop, and hosting different workshops about how to, shoot with film, develop film, make silver gelatin prints in the dark room. From those 3 years of actually putting in the effort to help people, and definitely readjusting my style of teaching. It's just brought me up to the experience, and it's just been nothing but great. And I'm learning so much from the students that I'm teaching, and I understand that and not everybody has the same kind of teachings, learning style. So I have to try to accommodate to everybody. But um, overall, like I said, it's just been a very humbling experience, and I'm just nothing but grateful to be teaching at Bloomfield.
Actually, like you brought that up, that teaching has kind of always had this thing attached to it where you have to have a degree, you have to
Hmm.
have certifications, and I get it to an extent where it's like you can't just let anybody walk in and teach. There has to be some kind of, you know, certification process. I use the term very loosely, but I
Hmm.
think one of the great things about having someone like you teaching is you connect to the kids, right?
Yeah.
You motivate, you inspire, and at the end of the day, that's really what it is just inspiring, right? Especially with something like an art like photography.
Hmm.
You can have all the degrees in the world, you can use all the technical jargon, but does it resonate with the kids? I look back on like my college experience, and what did I really what did I really remember? Not
Right.
much of it. I remember experiences, I don't remember terminology, and I don't remember bullet points and book stuff, but I remember the experiences I had, and I remember things that inspire me. Something as simple as going on a photo walk with somebody. I'm always going to remember, you bringing us around Newark, showing us your
Mhm.
hometown and the neighborhoods that we saw and everything we picked up along the way. So I think it's kind of cool in that regard that education is kind of maybe hopefully starting to lean in that direction, because you're seeing it in the arts where you're seeing, if somebody has demonstrated an ability to inspire, an ability to make a career for themselves, the degree kind of comes second, where they don't need that piece of paper. And I kind of hope we get in that direction with college as well, because, you shouldn't have to have a degree to get a job. If you're experienced, why not let that experience shine? So I want to ask you, you know how it is coming up, everybody wants to go, they want to shoot celebrities, they
Mhm.
want to shoot, right now it's like concerts and rappers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And when you land these jobs, you've landed jobs, you've shot big names, you've shot big campaigns, so there's obviously a sense of accomplishment, and you get a little clout. It's a little clout boost. It's
Yeah.
nice to know you're out there doing the stuff that everybody else wants to do. How does that feeling differ from going out and inspiring students? There's not clout often attached to stuff like that, but how does it differ for you? Do you feel better doing this work than you do, or the work that you're doing with Newark, than everything that has a big name attached to it?
Mhm. Yeah. So definitely with my experience, I guess just maneuvering in the industry, like I was mentioning before, I'm like a junior, in college. I'm up on the 66th floor in Empire State Building. I'm meeting all these great people, and I'm meeting Willie Esco. I'm meeting Damon John. Like, all these different buildings. Like I met Lil Boozy. When he first got out of prison. And I'm on like a video shoot set with him, and I'm taking photos, and I'm also shooting video. And it's like, what, it's like you're in that high of that moment. You're like, oh, like I'm hanging around all these celebrities, I'm doing all this work, you know, it look good for like my portfolio, whatever. But it's just like, just like any other kind of like high feeling, you kind of like come down from it for a little bit, and it's just like, I don't know, like with the industry, and I felt like I definitely felt some kind of like burnout from it. It's like it's good, because you're running around with celebrities, you're capturing like the like not necessarily like a fast life, kind of style, or whatever. But you go to all these different interviews, you're being on set with all these different creative directors of like a particular clothing brand or a sneaker brand, and for me, and I often tell people about this, but being in the industry, it's fun. You get to have that experience, you get to see all the different celebrities, but after a while, it kind of just gets old from there. So um, I knew that I could do something, I guess a little bit more impactful with my photography, because even back when I was doing all these videos and doing photography, a lot of times like my camera would just sit on the shelf, during that downtime. And for me, that kind of bothered me, because I'm just saying, like, I just wanted to, just be more proactive within my craft. I'm a photographer. I want to get out and I want to shoot, and not wait till somebody says, "Oh, bring your camera. You're going to be on set shooting today." I want to get out there and get in the street. And kind of, that kind of segues into me getting into film, and and really learning and understanding the camera, and how to set your aperture properly, and how to set your shutter speed properly, all those different things without having to see the end result. Like, I should be able to see the picture within my head. And for me, and learning that experience and getting better at it, I look at other photographers that want to get into film. I was like, hey, well, let me try to figure out a way how to teach that to other people. And for me, collaborating, consistently with the Newark print shop, I was, able to meet all different types of people, along the way. And, and I kind of see myself in them that, they wanted to, understand how to shoot better with film, and then, and understand just the overall process of that. But honestly, just like the end result of that, seeing, people become, better photographers, and now they understand their purpose as a photographer. It's just like, I just feel, accomplished at that. Like, it's the most rewarding feeling, seeing somebody just excel, in photography. Or even when it comes to the community, a lot of people in Newark, even though Newark is an artist centric city, not too many people there connected with the arts, And so, I try to introduce them, to the art of photography, and especially film, because film was invented in Newark. And just sharing that knowledge with them and getting them excited about it, and then taking their photograph and then just showing them how beautiful they are, and how they're the piece of the puzzle that makes Newark. It kind of just inspires them, to want to kind of make some positive changes, or to show other people that they're beautiful as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think the Newark centric thing is a big part of who you are, and
Mhm.
therefore what you do. It's not often, Newark gets the credit it deserves, simply because it's in the shadow of New York. New York
Exactly.
casts such a big shadow on everything around it. But
Mhm.
there's a lot going on in Newark. There always has been. And I think it's important for artists like you, because there is power in arts. And you hit on a key word in what you were just talking about, is, showing people their purpose. And I think you found your purpose, and it's in a direction that's completely different than where most people look when they look to photography. They look to photography, and it's all about, especially in the age of social media, it's about, look at me, this is what I'm doing, likes, follows, brands, sponsorships, all that stuff. And I think people kind of go in this direction, and you've gotten a taste of some of that,
Mhm.
but you've kind of circled back around. And I feel like you've matured in your process, found your bearings, and said, look, I'm going to take everything that I'm doing and do it for home. I think you see the writing on the wall. I know, because we've had
Yeah.
this discussion. Like, you see the writing on the wall. It's like any place that's close to New York, at some point they have a target on the back to be swallowed up by New York, and redevelopment, gentrification, whatever stamp you
Mhm.
want to put on it. And I feel like you've kind of taken your direction as, I'm going to use my art, my craft. I'm going to inspire others to see the purpose, the power in photography that I have seen, and move my city forward.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, even when it comes down to putting together the Newark photo walk with Gabe, we're just trying to just bring people together, just to show that Newark has good things to offer. It's, and a big part of my mission, is to showcase the positives, and the great things that that Newark has to offer. Because when it does come down, I guess, to how Newark is promoted, there's a lot of negative talk. People, who are not from Newark, or just the media in general, they'll just either cover the negative parts, or they just don't know anything about Newark. And so it's just important for me just to control, like, that narrative of how I view Newark, and what Newark really is. Because, like I said, I've come across some people of all different walks of life, and they're good people. It's just that some people, they may have had just a bad run somewhere, or just a mishap. But everybody here, is human, and we have nothing but love for Newark. And Newark is a caring place, and it's also rebellious. So it's like, we can talk, whatever smack about Newark, but as soon as somebody else comes from outside to talk about Newark, we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we're not going to hear this bad talk. And yeah, that's really just been my overall goal. Um, and yeah.
I mean, there's a beauty to what you show, and I mean, I understand Newark a little more intimately than most people who aren't from there and haven't been there
Mhm,
that much. Because I went to school not far from there. I know a lot of people from there. I've spent a lot of time there,
mhm.
and it's like there's just something different about Newark. Like I've never seen people defend their city so ardently, like, but without trying to like when you come to New York, right? Bronx, Brooklyn, it's more about like, puffing your chest out like I'm from here.
Yeah.
Newark is less of that. It's more about a like a real sense of pride. Like we're
Mhm,
gonna protect what we have and we're not gonna let anybody come in and take what we have. We're not gonna let anybody come in and make us look bad or in any certain light. And I think that's one of the things about your photography. It's like I'll look at you like your images from the dudes just hanging out on Broad Street. And if you haven't been to Broad Street, you don't really have an idea for how hard it is to get in with these people and really see past the surface layer of what it really is. And I think that's where the beauty is in your work, because it's all about understanding,
mhm.
right? People people to semi quote a Nas line, people fear what they don't understand, hate what they can't conquer. And I think a lot of hate, a lot of misrepresentation comes from just not understanding and not giving somebody else a chance or giving yourself a chance to get to know somebody else. And you are giving everybody else a chance to get to know Newark through your work. And like you said, not putting it in a bad light. You're putting a very real spin on it, and you're breathing life and positivity into it. And I don't think there's too much of that. Like nowadays, street photography has become, for lack of a better term, hood porn. People want to
Yeah.
go to bad areas. They want to go where there's crime. They want to go where there's gangs. And we see a focus on the negative, on homelessness, on gang life, on the criminal element. And I think there's so much more to every community. You can't just put a stamp on, but that's been the stamp that street photography has left on a lot of urban communities. And so one of the beautiful things about your work is you're tearing down barriers, you're uniting people, you're doing it through this, in the same neighborhoods that people are coming in and showing in a different light. So can you talk a little bit about the responsibility of a photographer? I mean, we get one frame, we get a group of frames to really show an entire city or tell an entire story. So can you talk about that responsibility?
Yeah, and I definitely want to go back on, what you were saying just about just like that lack of understanding. And even, when I was venturing into, the idea about street photography, and looking back at the news, they're saying that, you shouldn't go to this particular area in Newark. You should, consistently watch it back all the time. And, I just had to like question that, like I just feel like for me, like I just naturally question everything. And I'm just like, well, why can't I walk down 18th Avenue, like where my cousins, live at, or or even go to the South Ward, where people enjoy their time at Weequahic Park and hang out on Elizabeth Avenue, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna find out why, and question that and just show and just showcase what exactly is happening there. It's because a lot of the news and media outlets are not really tapped into the communities. They just promote and showcase the bad works, and even the responsibility as a photographer, right? Definitely in this day and age, when it comes down to street photography, a lot of it is just, snap, click, and then just go off on our way, and that's, it's fine to get those candid moments if you want to, put together a story, but um, I'd rather, sit with the people that I'm photographing, and talk to them and see what's going on in their lives, or even if I'm speaking with somebody who has like a standout on broader market. I'm coming by consistently. I'm checking in on them, see how they're doing. I'm patronizing them. I'm giving them, money. I'm becoming a customer. And I don't know. We just kind of just build that bond that way, just by keeping it organic and just seeing exactly who we are. It's like we always walk past people a million times a day who stand on like these corners or these neighborhoods, and we don't get a chance to speak to them because, like I said, they're our neighbors. We should know each other by now. We've been living here all this time, and it's just like, well, why not see what's going on, see how they're doing. But you just never know, that person just might be your best friend, your ally, or somebody who you know, can, help you, move up in your career because they know somebody, we always think about, about networking. We go to different events, we go to different photo walks, we try to talk with different people to see, in which way can we elevate. But, like I said, the guy on the corner selling ice creams, he may have a, little nephew that's, in the industry and that can help you, get your work out there, or somebody may be connected to a museum where you can get your work archived. So it's really just about that connection. And even when you're going out there, you're taking your photograph and you're posting on Instagram or putting it together in a book, it's your responsibility to tell the truth. You can either talk about how you were feeling, that particular day, or if somebody's giving you like if they're pouring their heart out to you, you want to make sure you capture that story, and you want to just make sure that you can archive that in some particular kind of way. Because a lot of times, with these stories that people have, a lot of them, they may not feel as though that they have a voice. You can encourage them to say, oh, you can go out, write your own book, you can publish it, you can do all these different things, but that person may not ultimately feel that. And with your photography, you're becoming an ally, and you're kind of just uplifting them. Like I said, I've done this on, many several, occasions, especially during the pandemic. But it's just important to just tell the truth of the people that you're photographing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're supporting these people. I say it all the time, like posting on Instagram or yelling into the void is not activism. People aren't
Exactly.
going out. It's like the person who screams about capitalism, but they buy everything on Amazon. You don't really have a leg to stand on in your argument. So I think it's like, if we're posting pictures and we're telling people stories, are we doing it for us? Or are we doing it for them? I think there is something to be said for the trend of getting out there and learning about people and talking to people on the street. You've seen it. I'm going to credit it to Humans in New York. I think Humans in New York really brought that into the forefront. Nobody was really doing that before he was, to really
Mhm.
get someone's story. And I think it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And in a certain sense, it's a trend. And I think a lot of times we attach a negative connotation to the word trend as far as it comes to photography, because we see it as something that's short-lived, that doesn't really have much substance to it. But I think that's a trend that has kind of stuck, and it has been for good. If it's getting people out there and communicating with people who don't look like them, people who don't necessarily agree with them, I think that's where the conversations are being had. And you have to, it's all about communication. Communication, understanding go hand in hand. So if we're out there in the streets talking to people, and now you're taking it a step forward, and you're not just talking to somebody and trying to understand them, you're supporting their business. You're taking money that could go somewhere else and you're putting it back into your community, which is huge. So as far as trends are concerned, uh, it's something that's very big. I think social media plays a huge part in it. Are there any trends out there that you either don't like trends that you think have legs? And what's going on in the world of photography and social media right now?
Well, I mean, there's nothing that like I truly dislike. I mean, um, I'm in a space now where I'm a little open to everything. But the only thing that I feel like I have to maybe adjust myself to is, like this whole TikTok and like Reels trend. Um, like, yeah, we don't want to be realographers. We just want to showcase pictures. We may not be as good with video, but um on the same wave that, length, that's an actual trend and that we may dislike it. In that same sense, it actually might help us, to reach out, to a particular kind of audience. And for me, I utilize Instagram a lot. And so I only look at Instagram as a tool for me to put my work out there. I don't treat it more than anything else. It's just another tool that's in the shed to get people's voices heard, to have my voice heard, and to have, Newark showcase in a positive light. And so yes, like even though I see myself as a photographer and I don't want to put up reels or be on TikTok, I'm not a good dancer or nothing like that. But at the same time, it may be a better way to get my voice out there, somebody else's voice out there, or just any kind of important news out there. So for me, as a photographer, I have to adjust, because like I said, the industry adjusts to everything. If you look back, even like at photojournalism, like a lot of news agencies, they were letting go a lot of photographers because photography is easily accessible to everybody. And nowadays everybody, they have a camera, in their hands, whether if it's a cell phone, DSLR, or even like a little like point and shoot camera. But I ultimately, and I definitely posted about this like a few days ago, you know, being able to, have the latest gear and to, have the sharpest image and, to have all these likes and all these follows on Instagram, it doesn't really mean anything, like there's not a lot of purpose in that, unless you're trying to reach out to the, a larger audience for the greater good. But a lot of these different trends, they may just come and go, but ultimately, like I said, your purpose and pretty much for what you do, your philosophy, your beliefs, that's gonna just make you stand out, beyond
Ha-
everybody else,
Having something of substance rather than just
exactly.
something that's
Like
physical.
even I even look back at 2020, right? So like 2020 for me was like kind of like the craziest year for me in photography in general. Um, but while there were all these different rules being put in place that you couldn't come outside, you couldn't do all these things, we were kind of at the standstill, like we didn't know exactly what's going on. I just set it upon myself, like, well, why do I have to stay inside? I kind of want to see what's going on, in my neighborhood, and that like I didn't not saying I didn't see other photographers doing that, but I saw a lot of photographers kind of just like place a step back. They may have done like some indoor like self portraits and all these different things, or
Mhm.
showcase older works. Now I want to actively get out there to see like, okay, what exactly is going on in Newark, and that I can just show other people like what's happening here, and for that particular moment of me being there, finding out my purpose and pretty much my beliefs and what I wanted to do. The New York Times, they pretty much had me a part of an article and they showcased those images of me going out in Newark and photographing that, and um I just really just think that if you're an up and coming photographer, like just follow your heart. You really have to just do what you believe in, and I always go back to the advice that you given me, whenever I had
Uh,
any questions.
that's not always a good idea.
I mean, but still, like, so I feel like the most important thing that you can tell somebody is do you, right?
Hmm.
So even, it's a very short statement and, it kind of sounds dismissive a bit, like, oh, just do you, right? It's really important. Like, you really just have to, just do you. You really have to figure out what exactly is important to you and how you want to get yourself out there, and what's the purpose of you going out with your camera and photographing, right? Because anybody can say, okay, I have a camera here. I like doing photography because it's free, it makes me feel liberated. But they have to realize that, they can use that talent for greater good to do other things rather than just doing it for yourself. Like I want to figure out, how to, how to use my photography to end world hunger, and I'm just like, well, how exactly can I do that, even though I'm like taking pictures,
Hmm.
there's just so many different ways I feel like that we can just use our talents for the greater good, right?
Yeah.
So whether
I
if
mean,
it's somebody's story or just talking about just the overall place that you're from, right? Because I have many different photographers, they DM me saying like, oh, I'm not from a major city, I'm from a small boring town and there's nothing here, and I'm like, there's always something there. You're just not looking for it,
there's
you look
always
at
a story.
there's always a story. You look
Everybody
at
has a story to tell, and I think you see that. You see the. I think the bigger picture, as it's concerned with what the type of work that we do, is telling that story and telling that story so that it can be passed on. And I think that's the power. You see the power in images. That
Mhm.
images are there. You can't. Again, we can kick it back to responsibility of a photographer and really put the onus on us to decide what frame we're going to choose to tell a particular story. But ultimately, it's there. It's there. People can see it. People can come to their own conclusion through an image, and that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. Is does a picture always tell the story? Does it always tell the whole story? But I think it's really just that using it as a medium, as a tool to tell people's stories, people whose stories may not be told if they didn't come across somebody who was looking to tell the stories of others. I think that's where the power is you're out there inviting people into the fold. You're out there looking to say, hey, I have a gift and I want to bring you in on it, and I want to tell your story using my gift. And that's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, uh I forgot this YouTuber's name. His name is Ted, but I forget his last name. But he kind of had like this controversial kind of like I guess, title for like his video, whatever. But I thought it was so important. I was like, yeah, it makes sense. But what he said was the world doesn't need any more photographers, right? The world needs more people to do the important work.
Mhm.
Because as we know that, everybody here, we have, some type of camera, with us at all times today. It's easily accessible, but like who's actually going out there and doing the work, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
It's all
everybody has the ability. We've never lived in a time like this where everybody has the ability to tell their own story so easily. You don't have to sit down and write everything down. You could sit there, anybody could go through their camera roll and a story is gonna start to emerge about their life. I mean, I got 80,000 pictures in my camera roll. I probably have too much of a story there. I need to pare
yeah.
that down. But
Or that photographer, they may have somebody, within their family that they knew all their life that has a story, and they feel as though that it's important for, the they should realize that, like I said, some people in your family, you really have stories, you really just have to sit with them. They have different items with them from like way back that they can just talk to you about. And you can create just a whole entire story just on your family.
was photography passed down to you, or who initially got you into it?
I would honestly say like my parents, especially my pops, definitely kind of just passed down that I guess or whatever you want to call it, or because there was always just a camera around in the house. Whether it was a digital camera, I mean, even just growing up, my pops, he had a few cameras. He had a Yashica, it's like a GTN or something like that, the rangefinder one.
Oh, nice.
He had that when he was like 27, and then I remember digging through like the closet, found he had like a film Minolta X570 or whatever, But um, I've always seen like different, kind of photo books, like how you're archiving like your family sister. I forget what those things are called now, but you pretty much just have like that photo book just going through like family history and just seeing like all these different photos, like, oh, this mom and dad met, this
The
is,
old photo
Uncle Jimmy,
albums
the
with
old photo albums, and
the clear film pages that you
yeah, I feel like, throughout my life, we've had those photo albums. And I was just going through it, and just I feel like I was taking all that stuff subconsciously. But I can't forget one moment when we were in the Bahamas. We were on a ferry ship, like going from like the resort to like downtown, like New Providence in the Bahamas in Nassau. And I remember my mom, she gave me this Fujifilm disposable camera. And I asked her, like, oh, can I actually get that the camera so I can take some photos? She just gave it to me. And then, just being a kid, I'm over here, taking photos, across the sea and then doing all these different things. But without having like the knowledge of composition or just understanding just like photography in general, I saw a particular shot in my head where I saw pretty much the railing going up like to the rooftop of the actual boat, and then the sun was kind of in the middle. And so from there, I kind of crouched down and then like I aimed the camera and then I shot it. And that memory has just been ingrained in my head. And what's crazy is that this year I actually found like that roll that I
oh
shot when I was
wow.
like 7 years old. And honestly, man, like that, like I was just like I almost like broke into tears because I was like, wow, like this is the moment where I knew I wanted to get into photography.
That's
Like it
great.
was like at that exact moment, I was like, I want to do this. I said to myself, like internally, I was like, yeah, I want to do this.
And now with every accomplishment now, it's like you look back on that and it's
Yeah, I feel like
uh,
that moment was just golden to me because that's when I knew I wanted to be a photographer.
well, where are you going from here, man? Like what you've done a lot already. Is
Man,
there direction that you have in mind, or is there anything that you've done that you're like, you know what, I want to go more in this direction? Because there's a whole lot more than just being a photographer. You could be involved in the industry and in the art, but
yeah,
you've already been in different aspects. What kind of appeals to you the most?
man. I mean, what appeals to me the most is just knowing that success is knowing that you haven't reached the peak. Like I've done so much, I've seen so much in my career. I've been sponsored by, camera companies, lens companies. Had the chance to, work filmography, understand the behind the scenes of, how a film company works and distributing to different stores and understanding how that goes, to being published, to like I'm currently hired by Disney to, do behind the scenes and event coverage for them. Even to now just being a professor, in the educational aspect of photography, and so for me, it's just knowing that, there's so many other possibilities of what you can do with photography, like you don't necessarily have to, go out each day and hope that you're going to make the best photo. You can put together a lesson plan for somebody and host workshops, you know.
I want to stay right there because we did have a question come in from Tone Wolf joining us,
Hey,
asking what
homie
is your
Tone.
give Tone a shout out right there.
Shout listen, I'm just gonna get like a nice little shout out to Tone because I saw him on Instagram. He's been motivating me to go out and like run. So now we have like this like photographer run. We just go out there, we run, and we just talk photography. So shout out to Tone Wolf. Give him a follow on Instagram.
That's dope. I mean, look, everybody has their own release. Photography is a release. Running's obviously a release, and it's beautiful when people can get together and one person inspires in their own way, the other person in turn. So Tone is asking, what is your advice on licensing out your images, either to a brand, museum? Can you just talk about that in general, about setting value on your work and licensing in particular?
Well, I mean, you ultimately have to think about, how much work you've put in, your past few years as a professional photographer. Once you figure that out, and then you take. I mean, honestly, what you have to do, you have to look at like what other photographers license in general to get just to set an idea for yourself. Especially, you have to look at the terms and what exactly they're going to be doing with the image, because you may have a brand that says, "Hey, we want to use, we actually want to just own that image," but you're the creator of it. You don't want to just hand off your baby. So you may give them like some kind of like extended licensing plan or whatever, or you may just have them outright the image, but you may have to set that out at a higher price, rather than, if they wanted to use it for social media and digital billboards, for like 7 months up to a year, There's so many different ways that you can do it. I will put a number out there because like I'm not ashamed of it or whatever, but I wouldn't license anything, for under $1,000, and some other, photographers should just understand that, like you've put so much work, you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into your craft that you want to, reap the benefits from all that hard work.
What do you think about, um, while we're on the topic of
Yeah.
value of, we always hear it, and someone posts it, I think every other week on Instagram,
Yeah.
that exposure doesn't pay my bills. What are your thoughts on, because I think it weaves into a bigger fabric of a conversation of setting a value and holding to your value, but at the same time almost being pliable and saying, recognizing an opportunity or something that might be a bigger opportunity, but then you always have to contrast it with, all right, am I being taken advantage of?
Yeah.
Or so what do you think about that whole conversation there in regards to working for exposure? And I say working for exposure in the sense of, the broad sense of the term, not just the term. I think it's, again, that always has a negative connotation, like you're being taken advantage of. But can
Yeah.
you talk about that as a whole?
I mean, in life, you're gonna take L's and you're gonna like learn from them. But at the same time, you have to make a calculated L. You got to see, because I'll keep it 100 with you. Like even when I was um going, from college into like the Empire State Building, a lot of times like there weren't any paid gigs. But if I knew that, if I stayed around there for the most part, that an opportunity will come, for me to, go over there and get paid. And that actually did happen, didn't happen in that particular moment while I was there, but I stayed around, and I was like, all right, I'll do this little favor for you until, they pull me to the side and say, oh, we have a paid gig for you, So, I mean, understand that you just have to make those particular calculations. If you feel as though that, this particular opportunity isn't, going to be beneficial for you, whether if it's, just for the experience or for the portfolio work. If you feel as though that you're just wasting your time in general, then ultimately, just you don't have to take it. But at the same time, if you see some value in it that you'll, maybe let's say if you're working for free, at a studio, but they're actually taking the time out to teach you how to set your lighting and set up backdrops and and do contract work and paperwork. I mean, that's a lot of value because now that's like an internship.
Mhm. Yeah,
I would say just look at certain opportunities as an internship for you to learn, because you'll have a photographer that thinks they know it all and they actually don't know it all. There's so many different processes in photography. It's not just digital, it's not just film. There's so many other ways to, there's so many other aspects of photography for you to learn. So if you feel as though that this particular opportunity is not working out for you, or you're not getting paid, just take a step back. Think about photography in general. Would you still do it if money wasn't involved? Because I know I would. I go out every day and I photograph whether I'm getting paid or not.
That's
So
that's a big thing. I think that's one of the gaps in that whole everything you just talked about. That's one of the gaps that people fall into that they don't see, is that you're not just working job to job. You're doing the work in between. You're staying relevant. You're staying visible. I I know almost for a fact that a lot of the opportunities, like paid opportunities that you have, are coming from, oh, hey, I saw your work here. I saw you do
exactly.
this. I saw an interview you did. I saw it, it's I saw. You're out there. You're doing it. And I think some people have this mentality that success is just going to come to them. If you sit on your hands, and sometimes you can be a little too arrogant in your talent and your abilities so that you don't put it out there. But it's like you have to keep doing it. Sometimes it takes a decade, sometimes it takes 2 decades. And I think this idea of overnight success, or I'm going to get online and go viral or do something, I think that leads into people looking for some idea that is just going to go viral, and their goal is to
Yeah.
go viral rather than to have an entire book or an entire catalog of solid images.
Yeah.
Or people look at brands. Well, that's one of the common things that comes up, is like, well, how do I become a brand ambassador? How do I work for this brand? And brands aren't looking for people. If that's the route you want to go, brands aren't looking for people who just want to work with the brand. Brands are looking at people who are making a change. Brands are looking at people who are inspiring others, and that don't have anything about a brand involved in the way they do things. That's where a brand is gonna
Yeah.
look
And
towards.
I've been doing this for 13 years, and I know like a lot of people, they may like I said, some people may perceive that, I'm fresh and I'm new, and I'm now getting all these different opportunities because, I just started whatever. Like, no, I had to put in, the 10,000 hours and the 10 years to even get to this point. I remember at like one point in my life, right? So I'm just gonna just like throw a brand out there, but like I remember when I got into film, right? And then, I started doing research, and then, I was like, hey, I want to get a Leica. I want to buy a Leica, because I think it's a pretty cool camera. Like, let me see what it's like. Worked my behind off, got the Leica. I was like, okay, well, this is cool, and I'm shooting with it. And I was like, maybe, when I'm 40 or when I'm, more experienced, I'll get sponsored by them, and then 29, at the age of 29, I get sponsored by them. And then, after that year of sponsoring, they gave me a call and said, hey, we're looking for a photographer to cover an event. Could you do that? And now I'm being hired by Leica. So it's like in this aspect, you just have to think bigger, and you have to just keep working. And that's why I always tell people, like, you just got to keep going, because you just never know who's watching and who, say, okay, well, maybe I want to give this person an opportunity because I see the great work that they're doing. I see their purpose, and I see their perspective and what they're trying to do, especially if it's for the greater good.
Mhm.
Like they'll pretty much like so they'll reach out to you. I feel like I had a conversation with a photographer about how to get your work published and all these different things, and it's just like, well, if you're trying to get published, I mean, you have to give the writer or the publisher something to write about. If you're saying, oh, I just want to be published, and you have nothing to show for it, or if you haven't put in the time into really put in like the work or figure out your purpose, then it may be a waste of their time.
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you went to that publishing idea, because Sir Moore is asking when we're getting the next photo booklet and how has the process been curating it so far. And then Tone just jumped on that as well, that idea, saying, would you ever consider a coffee table book? And do you think that they're a viable way to expand your name brand as a photographer?
Oh,
So
this is awesome. Yeah. Um,
so let's start on that. Let's start on that. Sir Moore wants to know when's the next published piece coming? Is it something that you already have the idea for? Is it in production? Is it completely hush hush? And what has the process been like?
well, it's definitely not completely hush hush. I feel like I'm 85% done with my coffee table book. Um, and I would definitely want to say that, I've been working on it since 2017. So work changes, ideas change. So I really enjoy the bookmaking process. I actually have a copy of a book here that I did with my fellow friend and collaborator, Gabriel Ribeiro. And I don't know, I really like this idea of just collaboration, like even though we want to, make publications and put them together, it's just like, well, why not, work with a friend and see, what we can put together. And we definitely put this together in a short period of time. And, it's really just about the protests and activism in Newark, and we pretty much had similar ideas and similar works that, we want to like put together and pretty much just, put our just ideas and beliefs together, and I just feel like that the power of collaboration, that's what helps, definitely doing it by yourself, as far as like a publication, it is tough because you may not be able to see, what exactly you're putting together, like I've had many, different books that I've made and collaborated with other, artists with. But a lot of times, it's like if you try to do it yourself, you don't have like a second, third, or fourth eye. It's a really tough process. So I feel like anything that you do in life, even if you feel as though that you've done it yourself, you more than likely have people behind you to help you. So
That's
getting
a
up,
great point there. I mean, you sharing, a lot of people don't want to share the credit. So you're saying it's better to have an extra set of eyes or multiple sets of eyes than being able to say I did this all myself.
exactly. Yeah, there should be no shame in collaborating or saying or giving shared credit. Because even when people ask me about the Newark photo walk, I'm saying it's not just me, it was Gabe as well. It's like it was a collaborative thing. And I feel like that's probably like just the most underrated thing. It's just collaboration. And a lot of times people think that, sometimes like collaboration, it may have like one skew kind of view, but there's so many other ways that you collaborate, like even if you're let's say if you want to get this like within a store, and you want to be just like sitting on shelves somewhere, just figure out a way how to collaborate with that particular store. You may, if they're having like a slow day on a Wednesday, say, hey, like how about we throw like a little like book publishing thing like on a Wednesday, get people to come in and try your stuff, so many different ways to collaborate and get your work out there. But definitely me and Gabe, we had a workshop about zine making. It just has to be just like it could be like one cohesive thought, so you may be working on a zine at this very moment, you just don't realize it. You just have to just look at your work and then just figure out what is going to be the purpose of this particular book, and I would say just start from there, just figure out what the purpose of your zine or book is going to be about, and then work from there, because you may already have works that are, from there, yeah, that's going to be, about like whatever you're putting together your zine about.
Would you lump that same thing in? So like Tone's talking about a coffee table book. Is it kind of the same thing? I mean,
Yeah,
it's both printed, printed collection of your work. I think really a zine is obviously less expensive to do, and therefore
yeah.
it's easier for people to buy it and support it. A coffee table, you start getting into bigger money. It's a bigger investment, which means a bigger investment for your people. Is that of concern to you, or do you kind of feel like it costs whatever it costs to do it, and if people want the work, they're going to pay for it?
I'm not necessarily, worried about the cost. I'm just worried about just the materials and what exactly, what is the purpose of this book,
Mm-hmm.
because if you just have a book that, you just put in, just put something together, somebody may not want to, purchase that, or have that sitting on their coffee table.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and you can, just to kind of wrap that whole thought process up with Tone's question, there's like having something tangible, it never goes away. If Instagram were to go away a year from now,
Man,
let me stop. Then you still have that book, or nothing's constant, except like books have been around centuries.
listen,
Books have been around forever.
I'll tell you something right now. Even though like we're always like on Instagram and we're always doing these things, we need to start printing our work more,
Totally.
like man, at the college, we have access to a printer, and I have a printer here as well. But I just really feel like, when we did have a moment where Instagram, it did go down and people were kind of panicking, they couldn't access the work and all different things. And I'm just like, well, did you at least print it? Like if your hard drive dies, and you can't access any files, like did you print any of your work?
I mean, and our work is made to be seen it's like you look at it and you're like, it's
Yeah,
not.
like
Look how big, and you can see the
yeah,
detail. And
this is like 13 by 19,
mhm,
and and I recently posted this photo. It's Lamar and Talia, and they just stopped me randomly in a park, and I
mhm.
was just like, wow, like why not just document them, and then I saw like the beauty and and the love that they have for each other, and I'm like, man, like I'm inspired by that, and it
Mhm.
inspires so many other people, and I'm just like, you know what, even though I've made their picture, and some people either say they'll say like, well, like I took something like from somebody, I took their picture. It's like, why not give them back a print that they can look back on, when they're it's like they're teenagers now, like
Mhm.
they're both 18.
Yeah,
So like think about, if they stay together, when they're 35, 40, 45, they can look back at this moment. They have something tangible that they
yeah.
can frame up.
I mean, that's something that's exclusive to the digital age, because only in the digital age would printing not be like go hand in hand with like photography. Before, in the film era, you had to have an actual physical copy of the image. You had something there. I mean, the very
Yeah.
basis of film is a tangible thing.
Yeah.
And I think that people in the digital age have, either they don't get it, and I think you don't truly understand it. I'm going to issue a challenge to everybody out there watching. If you have not printed any of your work, print one image, print 5 images. They
Please
don't have
do.
to be huge. Just go online, go to MPix, go to anywhere, go to a local lab, print 5 images and hold them, look at them, see them bigger than a phone screen. And I think it'll change your entire outlook on what a photo means, and what a photo really is.
Yeah, even for my class, right? Like I printed some of my images, and we spoke about black and white and how we can communicate, what exactly is happening in the image, right? Because, yeah, we can, look at it on our phones and Instagram, and it kind of compresses it, right? So you can't really see each and every like detail of your photo. And sometimes like, printing up your photos like super big, sometimes you can really analyze your photo and say, okay, like, what exactly am I taking a photo of, or what exactly am I trying to communicate, because photography, in a sense, it's communication.
Mhm.
In a sense, it's like what exactly am I saying or projecting through this photo? And, because with my students, a lot of them, when they're doing assignments, sometimes they try to, just take photos just by taking them. I say, try, try to see the photo without taking it first. Just really think about what exactly am I going to use this, whatever, however many gigabytes or storage or space. What am I doing right now? How am I going to communicate what's in front of me?
Mhm.
And that's the biggest thing.
Uh,
So printing your work, seeing it in a larger scale helps you to like understand and analyze what exactly you're taking the photo of.
so we got two last questions here I want to get to from
Sure.
Tone and Sir Moore. Um, if you have one, Tone's asking, what is your favorite paper to print on?
I like luster. I'm liking luster right now.
Luster?
Yeah. Or if you're in a dark room, I like the pearl paper, whether if it's resin coated or fiber. Pearl is my favorite. So like that little semi gloss, and it has like that little glisten to it. It's not too no glossy.
Yeah,
It's my favorite kind of
I'm gonna
paper.
give you I'm gonna give you a paper I think you might like, and it's
Awesome.
it's my go-to. It's beautiful. I think it would wear super well with your style. Hanamula Photo Rag Barita.
I You know what? I've been looking at that brand before. So yeah, I'll just let me know. I'll come and pick it up.
There you go. Hanamula. I got some for you to check out. Hanamula Photo Rag Barita it's just like, I think it's a super universal paper. It's especially for street photography. I mean,
Mhm.
for my style, I think my style and your style are very similar. So I think that would be a good look for you. So Tone, that goes for you as well. We're gonna throw it out there.
Yeah,
Hanamula Photo Rag
Tone.
Barita. One of the greatest things to do and is pick up a sample pack from find a brand, pick a brand that's within your price range, or a brand. Hey, I looked this up. They look like they have some good stuff. There's a lot of great brands out there, paper brands, and they will sell sample packs. So you can get to try out different kinds of their paper. And it's so important to print on the right paper for the right image. And look, we're a great source of information here at the event space. We have a ton of free programming. We're bringing paper brands on all the time, and I know the reps are always open to people reaching out and saying, "Hey, these are my images." And I try to set people up whenever possible with one of our reps to find the right paper for the right image, because ultimately you can print the right image on the wrong paper and it's just not going to translate. But we're going to get into our last question here from Sir Moore.
Shout out to Sir
Because
Moore.
shout out to Sir Moore, because
My homie Joe.
you might need a couple minutes to think on this one.
Okay.
Top 5 dead or alive people that you'd be to capture. So who are the top 5 people you would capture, dead or alive?
Top 5 people.
Top 5 people.
Wow, I can't, really. Um, Top 5 people that I would like to photograph. Wow, I'm really like at a standstill right now. I would love to go back and photograph somebody who did recently pass and who was kind of like a positive impact in my life. Jerry Gant. I feel like we definitely kept our promise to each other to collaborate and like work on a photo, like on a photo shoot. We actually did that, but after that, he surely passed away. But I really felt like I wish we can actually like continue to photograph again, because even he's been always asking me to continue to document every day. So he's like instilled that in my brain. What else would I like to photograph? I would like to photograph a photographer named Stanley Green. He's a dope photographer, war photographer. I would love to actually photograph him. Who else? Wow, this is
Gordon
getting really
Parks.
interesting.
Come on, Gordon Parks.
Definitely. Oh yeah, of
That's one of
course,
the
Gordon.
goats.
I would have loved to photograph Amiri Baraka, father to Ross Baraka, and really great poet and activist. Billie Holiday. I would
Mm,
love to photograph Billie Holiday and Miles Davis. I feel like those are like my people. I would love to like actually photograph.
interesting. Interesting. Well, Dolo, it's always good chopping it up with you. Great catching up and seeing that you're doing well. I love seeing you hop around the industry. I think that there's so much that you have to contribute. And sometimes when you just stay stuck behind a camera, you don't carry the same impact. You got to get out there and you have to touch different areas of everything that's going on. So hopefully we could drag you back to New York City. I know you said you haven't been out in the city in a while.
Yeah, I haven't been back in a while. And shout out to my homie Chris Facey because he's actually back in town. So I was like, I need to try to make time to go out, back to Brooklyn or just New York City just to see him before he goes back down to North Carolina.
Facey's shaking his
Um,
head right now, like,
yeah.
you're gonna get a
Yeah.
text in a minute.
Yeah, I definitely want to just, I definitely get back out to the city. Because I definitely spent a lot of time there. My early days of photography, I was getting inspired by walking around in Soho, seeing the cobblestones, photographing, and then made a project out of it. So yeah, hopefully, we'll circle back around, but you'll definitely be, hearing from me and seeing me soon.
We love it, man. Let us know again where we can find your work.
You can find my work on my website, which is Chris Davis. So that's ChrysDavis.co. So chrisdavis.co. You can find me on Instagram at Dolo_photo. So DOLO_FOTO. Also on Twitter. I'm not a good Twitter person, but I share some stuff and some work from there. Yeah. So I mean, pretty much on every platform, I'm Dolo_photo. Yeah, you can learn more about my work on my website and see some of the features, some of my works. And yeah, let's stay in contact.
Awesome, man. Thank you. No, I can't thank you enough for jumping on. Like I said, always great to chop it up with you. To all of our viewers out there, we always appreciate you tuning in, getting your questions in. This is why we do it. We free education for everybody. It's great to be inspired. So hopefully this inspires some of you all to go out there, pick your camera up, document the everyday. It doesn't have to be, something crazy. It doesn't have to be shooting for a magazine cover. Document your everyday life. I think that's where Dolo's impact has been. And he's out there telling stories for the greater good. So Dolo, thank you for uniting us all of our viewers. Thank you for coming in and sitting in on this one. That's it. That's all we got for today. Another rendition of B&H Virtual Event Spaces in the books. Catch y'all next time.